Mercy by Linda Hallgren. It was the same dream. An oak in the middle of a field, the grass and the sky brittle like old paper. Under the tree, an angel, its frayed wings dragging through the dust, straddles a corpse. Crows circle above like pilgrims. The angel, mouth twisted in rage but eyes wet with tears, tries to keep the crows away, and still the circle tightens. Soon gone are the eyes and the tongue, nothing left but a meaty rose at the base of her throat. When the girl is blind and mute, the crows settle in the tree to watch the angel, with its soft nails and blunt teeth, scratch and tear at tissue still too fresh to part from bone. It made Kit Wilczek uneasy, the way the crows were still crows, and the angel was a crow too. "Stinker ahead," Nanny said. "Take her in, Newman." It took Kit another few seconds to spot the telltale dark smear on the road. He hit the brakes and pulled over. As usual, Nanny climbed out of the truck and stood watching, hands on hips, while Kit got the bag and the shovel. They wore the same gray overalls with "Highway Maintenance" written across the back in capital letters. Nanny's overalls were stretched tight over the curves of her body, giving the fabric a bit of a shine, like a pregnant belly rubbed with coconut oil. "All right, Newman," she said. "Let's get this one here on the slab wagon." Kit slid the shovel under the raccoon, wiggling it slightly from side to side to separate the animal's gory fur from the asphalt. "Careful now," Nanny said. "It's a ripe one." She held open the bag. "Nice and slow. That's right. We'll make an honest worker of you yet, Newman. Now close it up." Manual labor had never appealed to Kit. He didn't mind hard work, but working hard for sustenance living seemed like a shitty deal. For a long time, making money had been more important than having money, never mind how he made it. The story of his life was a sequence of bad choices made for the wrong reasons. It took Caroline to make him see straight, a tow-headed goddess who let him touch her perfect body with blood on his hands and blood on his mind. From that moment, Kit was in shadow if he was not with her. "It's not all bad," Nanny said as they got back in the trunk. "Once you get over the smell, and the looks people give you, like they're wondering what you'll be having for dinner." The sun had set by the time they pulled up in front of the Department of Transportation's headquarters for their meal break. Kit let Nanny off, then drove around the back of the industrial lot and to the pit. The hole, close to 10 meters in diameter, was dug into a field that ran between a row of garages and the outer fence of the premises. He hadn't been around long enough to know how deep it was. Looking down now, all he could see was fur and dirt. Kit dumped the latest casualties of the road and got back in the car just as the first raindrops fell. He found one of Nanny's candy bars in the glove compartment, took a bite, and forced himself to chew the sickly sweet candy while dialing. It tasted of almonds, honey, and, like everything else these days, rot. He tried Caroline's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. Always did. Next, he called her house, envisioning the phone where it hung in the kitchen, right next to a child's painting of a yellow field. Kit struggled to remember what else was in that painting until he was interrupted by her voice, asking him to leave a message or try her cell phone. "Just tell me where you are, sweetheart," he said, and hung up before the beep. Movement on the other side of the fence caught his eye. With the rain pouring down and the light fading, it was hard to discern any shape among the tall grasses growing undisturbed beyond the fence. But Kit trusted his instincts more than his eyes, and his instincts told him that something was out there in the field, prowling. He turned on the ignition. It was tempting to leave it alone. Worst case scenario, the scavenger would drag a couple of carcasses out of the pit. In the end, it came to nothing but a bit of extra shit piled on top of all the other shit that he would have to deal with on his next shift. The sleek head of a coyote appeared at the bottom of the fence. Within a heartbeat, the rest of the animal squeezed through and leapt into the pit. Goddamn cockroach. Kit got back out of the truck. They kept a .22 caliber rifle in the back, an old Smith & Wesson with Mercy crudely scratched into the stock. His parole terms clearly stated that he was not to handle firearms, and so he had never touched it. He left the rifle where it was, but grabbed a shovel from the trunk before marching on the pit. He was only a few steps away when the coyote leapt out of the hole with a carcass in its jaws. Kit let out a roar and threw the shovel. The coyote dropped its prey and sprinted off along the fence. He expected it to keep on running, but it stopped a short distance away and stood, watching, head lowered. Kit repressed the urge to get the rifle and went to kick the carcass back into the pit. It was the raccoon they'd picked up earlier, crushed nearly flat from neck to tail. He pushed the animal over the edge with his boot, leaving a trail of burgundy intestines on the mud. He looked across the pit at the coyote. The animal's eyes burned in the headlights of the truck. Kit followed its gaze to the puddle of gore at his feet, amidst the dirt and the intestines and tufts of gray hair. Something glimmered. He sank to his knees, and, with the care of someone reaching for a shard of glass, picked up the ring. It had a white gold band set with 5 stones, the largest the size of a pea cut in half. Kit held it close to his face, marveling at the way the stones, despite being covered in grit and gore, seemed to absorb and refine the harsh glare of the headlights. He spat on the ring and rubbed at the inside of the band with his thumb, revealing an inscription that was a perfect match to the one engraved in the ring he kept on a chain around his neck. Love transcends. The evening when the troopers came to arrest him, Kit had wanted to get his rifle out. Kill or be killed, at least he wouldn't waste away in a cell, 4 feet of concrete, and a lifetime of regret between him and the woman he'd failed to protect. But Caroline, his country queen with the soul of a shaman, spoke to him in that raspy voice of hers, saying how none of that would keep them apart. Not in this world or the next. And Kit went to prison. He slipped the ring into the front pocket of his overalls and struggled to his feet. The coyote was gone. I know it's none of my business, Nanny said, which is why I'm not asking straight out, and don't you go thinking that that's what I'm doing. They were headed down the highway, responding to a call regarding a vandalized stop sign. Ask what? Nanny pretended to straighten out a crease on her sleeve. The guys have this bet going. It's stupid if you ask me. The wedding ring was burning a hole in Kit's pocket. The sensible thing to do would have been to get rid of it, drop it back in the pit, or throw it in the river. Instead, he had simply gotten back in the truck and finished the rest of Nanny's candy bar. Anyway, they're betting on what you were in for. The pot is up to 200. Can you believe that? And what crime is your money on? Me? She looked surprised. I'll have no part in that. You ought to know by now, Newman. I'm not one to stick my nose in other people's shit. Good to know, he said. The vandalization of the stop sign came in the shape of a cock. Kit spent 20 minutes applying paint thinner and gently rubbing the area with fine grit sandpaper while Nanny talked on her cell phone. After that, they drove around aimlessly for a half an hour before the next call came in. Nanny answered. Night Patrol, Nanny speaking. Birds? Sounds a whole lot like you're driving through a whole lot of nothing if you ask me, but I'll tell you what. If we can find the time, we'll head out and have a look. But I'm not making any promises. I'll keep you posted. What was that about? Kit asked. A concerned citizen, whining about a murder. What? She snort-laughed. A pack of crows, Newman, up by Redview. Man's worried his dogs will run off and eat something that'll have them shit all over his Persian rugs. It's nothing. Kit let a few seconds pass. Might as well have a look. Your call, Newman. But I'm not dragging my ass out in the rain for anything that didn't die on the road and stay on the road. Kit pulled off the highway and parked in front of an old barn. Man said the crows were in the field to the north, not a quarter of a mile out. Right, Kit said. I suppose I'll just come back and get you if there's something out there in need of mercy. Oh, Christ, Nancy groaned. Just take the damn rifle. Who's going to know anyway? He shrugged. If you're comfortable with that, I suppose I could. I'm comfortable out of this rain, so you better. Kit let the beam of his flashlight sweep from side to side as he waded through the tall grass. Once or twice he angled it upwards in the hope of catching a bird taking flight, but the night sky revealed nothing but rain. He stayed on the same course until he came across a freshly dug hole. Dirt and bits of black plastic lay scattered around it, suggesting the digging had been done with teeth and claws rather than a shovel. He circled the hole, kicking at dirt piles and making a note of the various animal tracks that littered the clearing. Up by the road, Nancy still had the truck running. Kit swung the rifle until it rested across his chest. From the clearing, he followed a trail of flattened grass and paw prints that were quickly fading in the rain. Though bloated, the prints still seemed too small. No bears, no coyotes, nothing big enough to make away with a body. Kit walked faster. He was soaked to his knees, sweating and cold at the same time. His pulse crept from his chest and up his throat until he felt certain that he would gag on it. The field exploded. Wings, hundreds of them. The noise and the movement closed around him like tar. Kit crouched in the grass, shielding his face with his arms, but the crows never touched him, and soon the noise and the movement faded, and he could breathe again. A couple of steps took him out of the field and onto the bank of a slow-moving stream. All animal tracks ended here. On the strip of mud between the field and the water's edge, the only visible print was that of a single human foot. Kit got down on his knees and traced a finger along the delicate outline, melting the print with his touch. His mind returned to the childish painting in Caroline's kitchen. Something was taking shape in that yellow field. A dark speck that pulsed and writhed behind Kit's eyelids, but refused to settle. Ah, shit. Mercy was barrel first in the mud. Kit got to his feet and wiped down the rifle with his sleeve. The truck's headlights were no longer visible, but it might just be that he was too far away, or standing on lower ground. No cause for concern. Hell, Nanny could have gone for a piss for all he knew. Kit swung the rifle over his back and set off through the field, retracing his steps. The hole was dug over. Kit stood staring at the low mound that now rose in its place. A shovel had been placed on top of the tightly packed dirt. He picked it up and rotated the handle in his hands until he saw the red letters, D.O.T., marking it as property of the Department of Transportation. Kit dropped the shovel. The truck was still parked in front of the barn, but the engine was silent, the cab dark. Kit pulled open the door and slid into the driver's seat. The woman in the passenger seat was looking straight ahead. Her skin was the same silver-white shade as her hair, darkened to a sickly brown around the eyes and mouth. She wore wet and stained overalls that hung loose on her petite frame. Kit gripped the steering wheel, his heart beating with the same fury as the rain hammering against the roof. "You didn't have to do her like that," he said. "Wasn't a bad woman, all told. Nothing like you, sweetheart." He took a deep breath. It wasn't right the way you left. Left me, knowing full well the kind of man I was, and having promised it'd never come to that. Not ever. Your words, sweetheart." He kept his eyes on the blue doors of the barn as he spoke. In the chill air of the cab, the outside world shrank with every breath he took. Kit reached inside his front pocket. "But I knew you'd come for me. Lie waiting every night. And those were some long nights, sweetheart. Listening to grown men crying like that would do them any damn good. We all get what's coming to us." He held out the wedding ring. Her ring. She looked down at her hands in her lap, opened them wide, and closed them into tight fists. Kate didn't think the ring would fit anymore. "We'll get you a chain." He turned the ignition and pulled out on the highway. He could see it clearly now. The child's painting in Caroline's kitchen, the rolling yellow fields, and above them, red comets burning through the sky. Linda Hallgren is a speculative fiction writer from northern Sweden. Her stories have previously appeared in Pantheon magazine and Shipwright's Review, along with a number of Swedish publications. The music in this episode is by Sealand. You can find more of their work, including their album Dark Days, at sealand.bandcamp.com.